Hello, welcome to Africa Explored. Please subscribe and get started. Tokyo, August 21st, 2025. This city is a masterpiece of order. Everything runs on time. The trains, the meetings. The polite bows seem perfectly synchronized, but today something is different. Something is off script. A new rhythm is pulsing through the veins of this global capital and, well, it's coming from Africa. We've all been to these summits before, you know the drill. Handshakes for the cameras, speeches full of diplomatic jargon, promises that evaporate faster than a puddle in the Sahara. We've seen the script, we've memorized the lines, someone forgot to give Africa the memo, or maybe Africa decided to write its own. The air crackles with an energy that isn't just about politeness and protocol, it's about power. You can feel it in the hallways of the Tokyo International Forum. The usual dynamic is gone. Powerful, benevolent host, grateful, needy guest. Instead, there's a new narrative being written in real time. African leaders are walking these halls not with caps in hand, but with blueprints. Let's get one thing straight. The word demand can sound aggressive, it can sound impolite. But when you've been patiently asking for decades, sometimes you have to raise your voice to be heard. The list of demands laid out by the African Union spokesperson wasn't a plea. It was a business proposal, a statement of terms. It was clear, concise, and unapologetic. The Africa Global Partnership Accord, equitable investment, fair trade highlighted. The first item on the agenda, investment, not aid. The continent is done with the cycle of dependency that comes with handouts. They're not looking for charity, they're looking for capital, thriving tech hubs, burgeoning manufacturing sectors, vast consumer markets. Here's the opportunity. Who wants to make money with us? Next on the list was trade, fair trade. For too long, the rules have been written by others, for others. African nations are tired of exporting raw materials for pennies only to import finished goods for a fortune. You sell the cocoa beans for $1, you buy the chocolate bar for 10. Who's winning that game? The old model was simple. A Western country felt a pang of guilt, wrote a check, and called it aid. It was a band-aid on a bullet wound. It created a culture of dependency, and often came with so many strings attached, it looked like a puppet show. But here in Tokyo, the message from every African leader is ringing out like a church bell on Sunday morning. The era of aid is over. The era of investment has begun. This isn't just a change in terminology, it's a revolution in mindset. Aid says, you are a problem to be solved. Investment says, you are an opportunity to be seized. And Africa is the biggest opportunity of the 21st century. Think about the numbers for a second. We're talking about a continent that is home to some of the world's most critical resources for the green energy transition: cobalt, lithium, platinum. But the conversation is no longer just about digging things out of the ground. It's about building the factories that process those minerals. It's about creating the battery manufacturing plants that will power the world's electric vehicles. For centuries, the global trade system has felt like a rigged casino. Africa puts its most valuable chips on the table, its cocoa, its coffee, its diamonds, its oil, and the house always seems to win. The continent exports raw, unprocessed value and imports finished, expensive goods. It's a structural imbalance that has kept much of the continent playing catch-up. Here in Tokyo, that's the game African leaders are refusing to play any longer. The demand for fair trade is a demand to change the rules of the game itself. It's a call to move from being the world's quarry to being one of its workshops. The president of Ghana put it best in a side meeting yesterday. He held up a sleek, packaged chocolate bar made in Switzerland. We grow the beans, but we don't get to make the bar. We get a fraction of the price of this product, yet all the real value is added thousands of miles away. If you still think of Africa in terms of safaris and savannas, you are dangerously out of date. The new savanna is made of silicon. From Nairobi's Silicon Savannah to Lagos's Yabakan Valley, a technological revolution is sweeping the continent. It's being driven by the youngest population on Earth. The leaders in Tokyo are not just talking about this, they are showcasing it. They brought their brightest tech entrepreneurs with them. Young men and women who are developing fintech solutions, health tech apps, agritech platforms. Africa jumped straight to mobile phones. Now it's poised to leapfrog again. The demand for tech partnership is not for old laptops and outdated software. It's a call for collaboration at the highest level. African leaders propose world-class research institutes on African soil, an AI center of excellence in Kigali, a genomic research hub in Cape Town, a green energy lab in the Congo Basin. The next great breakthroughs won't just come from MIT or Stanford. They will come from a continent brimming with unsolved problems and brilliant minds. Of all the demands made in Tokyo, the one that carried the most weight wasn't about money technology. It was about something far more fundamental: respect. For generations, the relationship between Africa and the rest of the world has been defined by a subtle and sometimes not so subtle paternalism. The idea that Africa's problems could only be solved by outside experts, that its political systems were inherently flawed, and that its cultures were quaint relics rather than living, breathing sources of wisdom. This summit feels like the moment that narrative officially dies. The demand for respect is a demand to be seen, to be heard, and to be treated as an equal. This isn't just about hurt feelings, it's about effective policy. The graveyard of failed development projects across Africa is filled with the ghosts of well-intentioned ideas. Solutions designed in Geneva or Washington that made perfect sense on a whiteboard, but fell apart on the dusty roads of the Sahel. The reaction in the conference halls has been a fascinating spectacle to watch. It's a mix of surprise, grudging admiration, and a healthy dose of skepticism. You can see it on the faces of the delegates from Europe, America, Asia. They came here expecting the usual script. Instead, they got a full-blown "we need to talk" intervention. The Japanese Prime Minister, a man known for his calm and composure, looked genuinely taken aback during the opening plenary. His expression was one of intense curiosity, like a chess master who just saw his opponent make a move that wasn't in any of the books. It wasn't anger, it was the look of someone realizing the game has just changed. The European delegation seems to be in a state of quiet disarray. For them, the Africa relationship has long been filtered through the lens of history-aid migration. Now they are being confronted with a confident, unified bloc that is talking about trade terms and investment partnerships with the assertiveness of a major economic power like China or India. What makes this Tokyo summit truly historic is not just the boldness of the demands, but the unity with which they are being delivered. In the past, these global gatherings were often an opportunity for outside powers to play a game of divide and rule. They could make a separate deal with one country, play it off against its neighbor, and undermine any sense of a collective African position. But not this time. From the moment they stepped off their planes, the leaders of the African Union have presented a remarkably united front. They are literally and figuratively speaking with one voice, and that collective voice is infinitely more powerful than 54 separate whispers. This unity is the secret weapon. It's the product of years of hard work within the African Union to build consensus. The establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area was the economic foundation for this new solidarity. It forced nations to think beyond their own borders and to see their economic futures as intertwined. Now, we are seeing the political fruit of that labor. When the president of Nigeria makes a point about fair trade, the president of Kenya nods in agreement. When the leader of South Africa speaks about the need for tech investment, the leader of Egypt publicly backs his call. So, as the lights dim on this extraordinary summit in Tokyo, one thing is crystal clear. The world has changed. The old maps, the old rules, the old attitudes, they are all obsolete. Africa has stood up, not as a victim, not as a charity case, but as a protagonist in the story of the 21st century. The continent of the future is no longer waiting for permission. It has kicked down the door and announced its presence. The energy is palpable. It's the energy of 1 billion young people, ready to build, create, innovate. It's the confidence of a people reclaiming their narrative and destiny. The demands laid out here, investment, fair trade, technological partnership, respect, are not a threat. They are an invitation to build a more equitable, more prosperous, more interesting world. A world where solutions to our greatest challenges, climate change, public health, come from Lagos, Lusaka, London, Los Angeles. To ignore this invitation would be a moral failure and a colossal strategic blunder. The greatest growth story of the next 50 years will be written in Africa. The smart money, the smart politics, the smart partnerships will follow. Of course, the path ahead is not easy. Corruption, instability, infrastructure gaps remain. The leaders who spoke in Tokyo must now go home and do the hard work. Unity forged abroad must hold when tested at home. But now, the momentum feels unstoppable. The hope rests on Africa's own potential. The world stands at a crossroads. Cling to old stereotypes and business as usual, or embrace this new reality. Listen to the powerful, unified voice from the world's youngest continent. See Africa as a wellspring of talent, a hub of innovation, a vital partner in shaping a shared future. The message from Tokyo is simple. Africa is ready. Is the world ready for Africa? The future is calling, and it has a distinctly African accent. It's time for everyone to pick up the phone.